In the meantime, he would call in Jun-Ichi Yaoi, a seasoned UFO investigator with the Nippon Television Network. And between the two men, they would carefully reconstruct the strange events that led up to Herrmann's abduction. 3 months earlier, this had been a construction site for a new subdivision. It had offered Bill and his wife Patty a panoramic view of the surrounding area to observe the bright, noiseless object in the night sky.
Particular evening, we were out here. We were sitting, it was about a little after 9:30, almost 10 o'clock. And we saw the object come up, my wife and I. We saw the object coming up this way, up the river, and it was about maybe 900,000 feet above the water. Just a disc of whitish light. And then it kind of rapidly gained altitude, going up at a apex of a triangle, if you don't understand. And then we lost sight of it for a moment. We were both standing outside the car. All of a sudden, right over this area, the big light, just a light. It was coming straight for us. Our car was parked over that direction. And we got frightened. My wife got frightened very much. And we just left. I turned the car, jumped in the car and turned the car on. And started to speed out. And looking in the rearview mirror, I saw the light look like it reversed its course and started going back toward the river.
In other words,
when we
close.
when we left, when we were gone, the object came toward our car, and then it changed its mind or dropped following us, and it just went back the opposite direction.
How big was it when it came close to you?
Oh man, the lights from it, huge, big old spotlights, like there's spotlights coming straight for us. And my wife was particularly terrified because, we didn't know what was going to go on. So she said, "Let's get out of here," and we left. Man, we was gone.
Have you seen the detail of the UFO itself, or just light?
Well, you could see a shape behind the lighting.
And
when it looked like a dull metal finish, and the lighting itself kind of more of the lighting stood out than the detail of the object. But the object it looked metallic, like a metallic skin, but the light's in the front of the object.
How was the distance between yours and the UFO?
If I'd have had a camera or a rock or anything, I could have thrown it and just hit the bottom of it. That's how close it got to the car. And it was just a matter of seconds. I mean, if we hadn't gone when we did, there's no way the object couldn't have intercepted our car. I'm very convinced if it wanted to catch us, it could have. Because it seemed to be moving that fast coming up from the river.
Was it before your abduction?
Yes, it was.
Before?
It was before the abduction.
Was it...
I was with my wife and my daughter, so I didn't know... I didn't want to take any kind of chances on anything. So we just left.
So you should be very frightened.
That particular evening we were. Because all the other sightings were just simply watching something moving in the sky and never anything coming that close to us. I guess I should have looked down the road then, but I didn't know what was going on. Up to that time, I was convinced what I saw was a military project. I never believed it was from another world or anything. I thought since the area is in such close proximity to the Air Force Base, because this area is a flight landing pattern for commercial aircraft and sometimes military aircraft. And that was my thoughts back then.
Noticing that Bill is near emotional trauma, Jun-Ichi quickly changes the subject.
And then most of the sightings afterwards, one of those or a C-130 turboprop would come up and down the river, just fly up and down the river. And all I kept thinking, wow, man, I don't believe this. Because, one of the feelings in my mind and my thoughts was, when you see something, it seems distant. In other words, removed from you personally. But this thing reacted personally. In other words, not only were we watching it, but by coming toward us, it was watching us as well. Not just performing to delight us, but it seemed to react to our personal presence, and it reacted by coming toward us. And of course, it frightened us because I never saw it that close. And we left.
After the frightening experience, Patty's fear would overcome her curiosity, She would beg Bill to please leave well enough alone. He would agree, until 3 weeks later on a Sunday morning.
Daddy was home, I believe. Yeah, our daughter was sick, and she couldn't go to church. So I got in my car to go to church, and I'm driving down Dorchester Road. And since that last sighting, I had kept my camera in my car fully loaded. I wasn't thinking about UFOs. In fact, I was listening to some hymns on the radio, Christian hymns, just minding my own business when this thing shoots across the road. Silver with a halo of light on the bottom of it. The most pretty thing I ever saw. At first it was silver, pure silver, and then it just changed like somebody got a rheostat in a dining room and turned it from bright to dim. This thing was going up this way and back this way and back this way and getting so precise in its movements. That's where I connected the term in my mind, triangular patterns, because it went up like a triangle and then skid up and down this way. And I don't know the purpose of it, maybe to attract my attention. I don't know.
The triangular flight patterns would remain a mystery, and although the photographs were good, they would pale in comparison to those he would take later. As the investigative team neared the location where Bill took his dramatic new series, Stevens became concerned.
We would be filming near a strategic U.S. Air Force base, and I was concerned that this might cause problems for all of us. As a retired lieutenant colonel with the U.S. Air Force, I knew that the military could be unpredictable at times, especially when you have a foreign film team operating on the edge of a restricted flight line. And we were here investigating an unidentified flying object, a UFO, that was intruding in military airspace. Yes, I was concerned.
Here at the end. Want to take off on landing runway. Okay, I'll look up and ask right there a little bit. The end of the runway, there's a C-141 coming this way, then you're I'm gonna go right over. You ready? Oh, yes, sir. It's gonna really right. This is the position that he took the photographs from. How close it was the landing pattern.
The photo session at this site was most intriguing. Had Bill simply followed a hunch, or had he been telepathically guided to the location? Another mystery without any clues.
Like I say, I was at work, and I left work, I was on my way home. And on my way home, I had that thought. It was like a impulse telling me to, go somewhere. And I started to think, where should I go to myself? And then it was like in my mind, I got a mental picture of this area. And I knew it was near the air base, and near where everybody parks. Got back here, and I wasn't back here 10 minutes when I could see the object. I don't know exactly where I saw it at first, but it circled the area, and I saw it. And the first thing I noticed was it was much smaller. I mean, it was, prior to other ones were anywhere from 40 to 65 foot in diameter, but this one was 20, 30 foot. And another thing was, it was very, very different. It was different in the sense that instead of being orange and silver, it was just like a silver metal appearance.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it had two domes, one of them on top of the object and one of them underneath it. But it looked sealed in metal. In other words, you didn't see no windows or no holes or nothing.
No windows.
No.
Oh.
Did not see any windows. It was just surface metal all the way around. Almost like sheet metal formed into the shape of a disc with two domes. One on top, one on the bottom.
How was the dome? Was it transparency? Or?
No, it was solid metal with the rest of the disc. And it was all colored silver with the sun shining off it. I mean, it was just beautiful silver like aluminum or sheet metal.
How did it fly?
I don't know. I did not hear any noise. It was like, it was that, in that sense, it was like the other objects because it made absolutely no noise. I mean, it would go up like this and come back like this. Come around like that, and just watching it was, you know, it was hard because when it would go that way, I'd run across the field, and I'm trying to get it in a viewfinder, and I took about 4 or 5 shots like that, and I believe 2 or 3 of them came out, and 2 came out empty sky. Well, in the course of the sighting, the object was going like this way, and then it reversed course and went back that way until it was like hiding behind some trees over there.
Yeah.
And I stopped and I thought for a moment it was going to be gone. But instead, I saw an airplane coming this way. And, you know, I saw it getting closer and closer. At the same time the airplane was halfway from those trees to where I was at, the object came from behind the trees to start to follow the airplane. Well, the way the airplane was coming in like this, and the object like it came around like this. It started to come around like this, but instead it went back this way, and on these sides of the trees. And as the C-130 passed over me, I took a picture of it. And then I swung back. By that time, the object had gone back over here. And then it started to go back, and I took some more pictures of it. And then it came over me like this, and the sun wasn't like this as much as it was over this way. And when it did, the object went straight up into the sun. For a moment it was cast as the sunlight hit it. It took on a dark shape. And I got a picture of that. I did get a picture of that. And then the object looked like it went straight up into the sun. That was the last I saw it. I mean, it just climbed and climbed and climbed until it was gone. And I just stood in the field and shaking my head, trying to figure out why I was the one seeing all this. Waiting for someone to pull over and get out and say, what the hell was that? Or you know, something to that effect. You know? Excuse my French, but I mean, that's really, I was trying to think of what, first I want to guard the film, and I was praying all my pictures came out, because I knew I had some good pictures if they did come out.
Right. What do you think the military people?
I'm positive they had to see it. I know for a fact the Air Force people did, because it wasn't hid behind the trees where you couldn't see it. It was like, see that big tree? It was like on the other side, they were just sitting there next to the tree, just hovering right there. And when the airplane came over and it came back, if the pilot saw me, I mean, imagine a pilot that low to the ground, here's somebody standing there with a camera taking pictures of his aircraft.
Right.
I mean, he had to see me on the ground, because it's an open field.
Right. And also the radarman have known about it.
Oh, I'm positive the radar.
Right.
The thing was 1,500. At one point, I'd say about 2,000 feet above the ground, 2,000 to 3,000. And from what I've talked to radar people, they say the radar will pick up anything as low as 800 feet. You know, if they find it at 1,500, they'll sweep the area and then come back and sweep it and try to get the lowest sweep possible in order to detect the object on radar to get an echo fix. And if that was able to happen, well then obviously somebody over there saw something.
There's another one's going to take off.
Next day, I got a phone call from the Air Force Base telling me to come out there and see a Captain King. He was interested in seeing my photographs. So I went out to the Air Base with my daughter in the car and got in there and got to the gate, and the guard didn't know what I was talking about. He said, well, Mr. Herrmann, it's 5:30 in the afternoon. Our information officer has been off duty since 12 o'clock. I said, well, somebody called me at 3:30 and told me to come out here by 5:30. And he said, well, wait right here. So I waited, and finally, about 20 minutes later, up drives this station wagon, out gets this fellow in civilian clothes, walks up to me and says, hello, I'm Wade King. What can I do for you? And I said, well, sir, somebody from your office called me and said you were interested in seeing my photographs. He said, what photographs? I said, the photograph of the UFO I took. He looked at me and he says, wait right here. So he went to the guard shack. 5 minutes later, up walks the guard in uniform with a sidearm, puts his hand on my window in the car and says, are you military? And I said, no, sir, I'm not. He looked at me like I was born yesterday, and he said, well, let me tell you this. He said, why don't you turn the photographs over to the captain and let him take it from here.
Mm.
Said, just turn the negatives and the photos over to the captain and let him take it from here. And I said, well, to myself, I said, I was not born yesterday. I said, listen, I'll compromise. I'll give you a photo and you tell me what you want to do with it. Do what you want, anything that you think you can help me find out what this is. He said, well, we'll certainly do that. Thank you so much. And he wrote his name on I.O. Bill Herrmann, one card, one photograph, you know.
No.
And he handed me his card with that written on the back. So I took it and I left. Thankful I wasn't military.
Mm-hmm.
So I took these blow-ups back to the information office to get my photo back from the captain. The minute I walked in his office, he was bright-faced, cheery attitude, and got up and said, hello, Mr. Herrmann, how you doing? And I said, fine. He said, let me tell you, we put it through our information channels, and this is what they told us. You photographed an F-4 Phantom flying at 5,000 feet. That's what you photographed, Mr. Herrmann. But if you look here, pointing to that picture, he said, if you look here, you'll see the stabilizer and the back tail, and you can even, if you look close, you can see the exhaust. And I didn't know what to do. So what did I do? I pulled out my blow-ups, and I said, tell me something. I put them down in front of him, the same exact picture, and I said, does this look like an F-4 Phantom to you? And he looked at it, and he kind of went like this, and he says, now listen, he says, if I was you, I'd just forget you saw it. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what was going on. I certainly didn't. And as far as I knew, what I'd seen was a military project. I didn't believe it was from outer space or anything like that. I thought, well, man, you stumbled on a military project, and what proves it? The attitude of the Captain King. That's what proved it to me. You know, his attitude, well, if I saw it, I'd just forget it. You know, why would he forget something that's flying in the confines of the Air Force Base and flying so near a nuclear weapons facility and you know, in this degree? Well, I didn't know what to do. And finally, I didn't have an opportunity to take any more photographs, and I didn't know where I should, you know, how far I should get involved in it. You know, my father said, well, if it is government, you're going to find yourself in over your head, and they're going to do everything they can to discredit you, and they're going to hurt you, and you're not going to get, you got to think your family and all this. And I said, well, maybe I should. I got a phone call about, I think it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, from a gentleman who identified himself as Tom Olson. He was in town from Riderwood, Maryland, to investigate the UFO sightings and the earthquake phenomena in Charleston, which has been going on, roughly since October of '77. And he told me that he was here to investigate this. He was going to take some photographs of the areas where all the UFO sightings had taken place, and that he was going to make available to me copies of the information and his conclusions and findings. Talked with much authority, a great grasp of my naive knowledge of the subject, and suggested, could we meet? Well, about 3:30 he arrived at the house. He had a Maryland driver's license with his picture on it, and then he showed me a retired military ID card, and I believe it said United States Air Force, retired. And then he showed me a Social Security card, and then what they called the UFO Information Retrieval Center ID card, which was a long title, you know, but still, you know, it was, oh yeah, with a picture and with a thumbprint on the front of it. Got in the car, and I had my pictures with me, and I said, here, would you like to see the photographs? Because I was impressed with the photographs as far as, here's something that shows I'm not hallucinating.
Right.
You know, what do you think it is? He brushed them aside and said, we'll look at those later. Tell me about your experience. I told him. I told him about the earthquakes. I told him about seeing the object. Told him about photographing it. Told him about all the people I've found it who have seen it. The strange things affiliated with it. The reaction to the military aircraft over the field and cross-country road. He said, well, how we get there? So we went there. And first we went to Beast Ferry, where the object hovered over the towers and moved in triangles. He took photographs. He took at least 40 pictures at each site. A whole row of 35mm film at each UFO site. took one picture of me at the first sight, and that's all the pictures he took of me.
With darkness setting in, the men headed back to the car.
And he asked me, he said, Bill, let me tell you. He said, what do you think about taking a polygraph test in relation to this? And I'm sitting in this car, and my first thought was, wait a minute, you haven't even seen my pictures. Why do you want to know this? But I was afraid if I felt put on the spot. I was afraid if I said, no, I won't, then he'll just, he'll go to the press, and next thing I know, I'll be on the front page of the paper, big hoax, Then I was afraid, well, if I said yes, it'll get twisted. I'll tell the truth, but they'll say I lied. And then it's their professional credentials against me. And I didn't know what to do. And being naive as I was, I said, okay, I'll do it. Now, I assumed at that moment in time he meant 3 weeks from now, 2 months from now, a couple days from now. He said, okay, we'll go to the hotel and do it right now. And we walked in the door, and I'd never been in the Mills house. And I was stunned by the beauty of the inside, the big chandelier and the beautiful furniture and the different adjoining rooms and the soft music playing in the background. And Mr. Olson, he looked at me, he said, this is a nice place, isn't it? I didn't know where I was going, I was just following him. And my thought was, well, polygraph, seems to me they got to have a certain place they got to operate it. And I was assuming there's got to be somebody else with him, but I haven't met them yet, and I don't like this. I don't understand what's going on here. It seems like there's something not right here. But I wasn't going to blow the whole thing and walk out, say, no, I don't want to do this now. The elevator went to the 5th floor. We walked out of the elevator, walked up a little hallway in front of the elevator till we got to a big hallway. And we took a right, walked all the way down. It seemed like a long walk. Then we turned right again, walked up another hallway till we got to the last room down the hall. And the thing I didn't like about that room was it was separate from the rest of the room. There was like a little box closet. I heard him tap on the door twice. The knob turned. I walk in the room and there's 2 other people in there. And one of them introduced himself as, he kind of mumbled when he introduced himself. He said, I'm Dr. Blah, blah, blah. He shook my hand. The other fellow says, no, I'm so-and-so with the Riderwood, Maryland Polygraph Association or something like that. He said, well, sit over here. And there was, looked like a flat machine, looked like a briefcase almost. And when you open it up, there was like a polygraph, the polygraph machine itself. Now, there was all kinds of little wires running out of it. He did not ask me to sign anything, which I felt, not that I wanted to sign anything, but something in writing to protect my rights, But even when that thought crossed my mind, I dismissed it, which I was manifesting naiveness. I wasn't scared as much as I was, I don't like this. You didn't even tell me there were 2 other people here. And I was wondering what was going on, but if this is the way they operate, well, maybe I just better go along with the tide. But when the doctor, the guy who identified himself as a doctor, walked over to the bed, picked up a black satch doctor's bag, and pulled out a hypodermic needle in a little syringe, put them together, and then reached in the bag and pulled out, looked like a greenish liquid. Put it into the needle and said, this is going to relax you. Now, I was scared. And I wasn't afraid I was going to die. I just didn't know what he was going to put in me. And I started, my voice quivered, and I asked him, are you sure that won't hurt me? He said, no, Bill, this isn't going to hurt you. And I rolled up my sleeve, and he punched me right here. And I saw it go in me, and I sat there a minute, waiting for me to die, and I didn't die. And I sat there, and I felt very, very relaxed. Very relaxed. And he started asking me questions. Did you see a UFO? And I said, yes, I did. And the doctor, the polygraph guy marked something. He asked me another question. When you saw the disc, did it change color? And I said, no, it didn't, because it didn't. And he marked it, and it seemed like his hand moved slower that time. I didn't realize it, but I was getting sluggish. I was getting more relaxed. I didn't realize it. And he asked me the 3rd time, And it wasn't like I was in a trance, but I was just totally relaxed. And then he asked me more questions. He would rephrase questions, ask the same question rephrased. Now this went on for, oh goodness, seemed like an hour, hour and a half, until finally he said, "That's fine." And he put down the thing, set it down, and he said, "Okay, unhook him." And I was drained of energy. I mean, I was literally, oh man, I was tired. He said, "Well, go in the bathroom and wipe your face off. Put some water on your face and relax. It's over, don't worry." And I was in there and I did that, and they conferred for a moment. I didn't hear what they said. You could hear them mumbling each other, and I didn't hear what they said, because I had the door half shut. But the minute I came out, they all walked away from each other. Tom Olson said, "Okay, Bill, I bet you're starved." And I remember saying something about, not really, I'm more tired. So we left the room. Went downstairs, got in the car. He says, you sure? I'll be glad to take you anywhere. I hear they got good she crab soup at Trawler. And I said, no, Tom, I'm about to drop. I'm tired. Take me home. He said, "Okay." He said, "Listen." He said, "You'll be hearing from us for the results of the polygraph examination." He said, "Either way, you're going to hear from us by at least Wednesday." So we drove home, and we hardly said 2 words on the way because I was tired. I didn't even feel like asking anything. We pulled into the yard, and the minute I opened the door, the cold air hit me, and I was, cool air hit me, and I was, refreshed for a moment. I said, "Tell me something, Tommy." I said, "Where do you think this thing is from? I mean, it's military, ain't it?" He said, "Who's military?" And I said, I said, "Our military." And he said, "I wouldn't bet on it." And the way he said that, I'll never forget it.
One week later, Bill received a memo from Tom Olson asking him to fill out a questionnaire and send copies of his photos to the office in Riderwood, Maryland. Shortly thereafter, a mailgram arrived from Tom Olson. The message thanked Bill for sending the material. It was friendly, but contained a disturbing reference, which read, "I did not visit you. It was someone else, and I have no idea who. Signed, Thomas M. Olson, President, UFO Information Retrieval Center, Riderwood, Maryland."
To this day, Tom Olson in Riderwood, Maryland, swears up and down he never seen me, and I believe him. I believe him with all my heart. That this is not the same Tom Olson who lives in Riderwood, Maryland, and is a UFO Information Retrieval. Now, see, this guy didn't identify himself as president of the UFO Information Retrieval Center. He just is a member. The real Tom Olson is the president of the UFO Information Retrieval Center.
Right. I've seen him before.
Okay, see? And that's...
And then, you've never seen that
the fake,
Olson
yes,
again?
I saw him one time after that when I worked at J.C. Penney's. It was late at night, about 9:30, and I was dumping the trash out and cleaning up where I worked at J.C. Penney Auto Center in Charlestown Square Mall. And I opened the back doors, and here's this car sitting back there.
Oh.
When I walked out of the door, the car just swings around, pulls up to the back, says, "Hello again." And I looked in the car, and there's this guy, Tom Olson. Now, I had knew that he was a fake.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing I did is I said, "Now, who are you? Why are you masquerading as someone else?" And he looked at me like, just brushed it off and said, "It's for your own protection. You should know that." Or something to that degree.
Oh.
He said, you should be careful what you say and how deeply you get involved in these things. He just told me about being careful who I talk to. It's for my own good. It's for your own safety. We're watching. We're aware of everything and all this. And I told him to get out of there. I said, "I'm going to go call the cops." He kind of laughed. And I started to walk and get his license plate number in the back of the car. And I started walking toward him. The car backed up. I walked in, the car just backed up all the way and took off into the traffic. He got away so quick I couldn't even see the back of the license number. I couldn't even get no numbers or letters or anything.
Oh.
But when I started to walk behind his car to get his license number, that's when he took off.
And you never seen
Never,
again?
I haven't never seen him face to face again.
Wow. And what do you think?
I think he's either CIA or the I think he's part of some conglomerate that looks into these things for the government, off the record, and does it solely to either confuse everyone really involved in it or to discredit any people who come into contact with UFOs. I believe that. I think that's his whole purpose, isn't it? It's to
Not only
get
had
me
Bill and his
frustrated,
family been
get
targeted,
me so
but
frustrated
harassment was now being focused on the investigative
instead of
team.
promoting the truth and the facts.
After we spent a whole afternoon and an evening interviewing like we did here this evening, and everybody had gone home, and we went to bed about 12 o'clock. It was pretty late at midnight, and I was just getting to sleep. At 12:15, the telephone rang twice, and it didn't ring again. So I picked up the phone, and nobody on it, and I thought, well, somebody dialed wrong. So I went back to sleep, and it rang again twice, and I woke up or was sleeping light enough, I heard both rings, and I thought, well, somebody is trying to call. I picked up the phone, and nobody on there, but the line wasn't closed either. The line was open, I could hear that, but nobody talking, nobody breathing, anything. So I hung it back up, and I dialed the desk downstairs, and I said, did you call me? And he said, no. I said, did any calls come in for me? He says, no, there hasn't been any calls on the switchboard. It's 1:15. So I hung it back up, and I thought, well, that's strange. And at 2:15, I got another 2-ring call. And I picked up the phone, and I says, who is this? Nothing. The line is open, nothing. So I called down to the desk again, and I said, is there any way that my phone can be rung? And he says, not unless it comes through this switchboard. I said, has anybody called? He said, no calls have come in. So I hung that up, and I called John Fielding across the hall in his room, and I said, John, something funny is happening 3 times now at 15 minutes past the hour. I've got a 2-ring telephone call, and nobody on the line, and the desk says it didn't come through the desk. He says, God, that's strange. He said, I've been getting them too. He said, I got one at 12:15 and 1:15 and just a couple of minutes ago. And it went on at 3:15 and 4:15 and 5:15, the same thing. Both of us got it. What was it? What they were trying to call?
The only one possibility is that somebody who were staying in the hotel.
Somebody staying in the hotel can ring the room number without going through the switch. Well, it goes through the switchboard, but it doesn't light it up.
Could have been somebody picked up a phone in a hallway or
another room. Somebody in another room could dial my room and let it ring twice, but it would have to be deliberate now. First it could be accidental, but it's not accidental if you get it 2 rings each time. And it happens 5 times during the night at exactly 15 minutes past the hour, and there's nobody on the line. There's too many things there that it can't be coincidental anymore. It can't be accidental.
Right.
And for 2 different rooms across the hall, the only ones that were being disturbed.
So is that the kind of warning? I mean,
I don't know what it was.
I was talking with Harry Levelson over the phone, long distance, in New York. I believe he was at Omni offices at that time, or I don't know if he was at his home residence. But anyway, in the course of our conversation, there was this noise. I'm going to duplicate it this way, and into the phone itself in our conversation. Didn't start the minute we started talking. Started when we started talking about the UFO. It was like
noise.
Just noise. Just a click, 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 clack, click, clack, click, clack, click, click. You know, Harry says, "What is that?" And I says, "I don't know what it is." And he says, "Well, listen." And so we listened some more. And finally he says, "You know, I know what it is. Somebody listening on us, and now they're disturbing us." And we talked in spite of it, and it still kept on going until it finally just stopped when we were talking. So I don't know what it was.
Here's another strange thing. Harry Levelson came down to visit Bill, and he made plans to come down with his girlfriend, telling nobody in the office where he was going on a weekend, and arriving quietly and unannounced. They arrived in Charleston, checked into the motel, and 15 minutes later got a telephone call from a lady who said she worked for a television station, wanted to interview Levelson on his visit to Charleston.
Who do you think they are, Wendell?
This is not the first case that we have investigators alleging that they are somebody else, false identifications. It comes up quite frequently. I have got to believe anybody that is that well equipped and has that many apparently valid identification cards is coming from an agency, a covert agency that is able to do all of these things and adequately financed. And I can only think of one that comes to mind right away, and that would be an intelligence organization. And the only intelligence organizations we have here are government.
That buzzing sensation works its way into
Bill agreed to undergo hypnotic regression to fill in 4 hours of missing time. Hopefully this would answer his haunting questions. Who are they? What are they? Where are they from? It would take almost 4 minutes to get him under. The session had formed a bridge from illusion back to reality, allowing Jun-Ichi to probe for more information. He asked Bill what had frightened him the most.
What I can recall.
To you.
Scary thing? The
Scary
most frightening
thing,
thing? I guess was the disorientation when I was released. You know, trying to comprehend where I am. I don't understand why they released me there. Why didn't they release me where I was picked up?
A concern of Jun-Ichi's was how would Bill cope with the reality of the experience.
I can't deal with this for the rest of my life. I don't know what to it's in a way it's strengthened my marriage, in a way it's torn my marriage apart. In a way it's gotten to the point where it's not so much an obsession with me as it is a preoccupation. And if I saw the object again, I'm naturally going to be inquisitive, but I don't know what to
You don't know what they think.
right. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't know what's, you know, it seems like with all this information and all this in relation, it seems that, you know, I don't want to get into a position where there's positive deception on their part towards me. I don't want to be used as some leverage.
There would be more sessions and more answers to troubling questions, beginning with, why did the objects perform triangular flight patterns?
The reason why they are moving.
The reason, yeah, I thought I got over that, is the reason that they fly in these triangles or they perform these erratic movements is because radar can lock on them, interferes with their propulsion somehow. I don't know the mechanics of it.
So
That would explain in one small area why radar doesn't lock on these things, because of their movements. They come up the river and they're flying level, and then they just crease up. And the higher they get, the more starting this thing they do. But they seem inside the object to be able to stabilize everything inside so it doesn't tear itself apart like a jet would if it started doing these acrobatics.
Jun-Ichi asked if any of the objects had crashed due to radar lock-on.
I believe this is back in the 60s or 50s, that radar had interfered with the propulsion of one of their network vehicles, and that the object itself had to make a what he termed an impact landing or a crash landing. Literally, they lost one of their objects, and not just the object, but the occupants on board were lost as well. He said governmental authorities and got the craft itself, the occupants. As a result of that crash, they tried to make contact with the government, open contact. But it was suppressed, the way he said it. And it's maintained suppressed.
by whom?
To the, I don't know. By the way he said it, Earth governmental powers. And that it was maintained suppressed. And they're just, you know, in the future, when the threat of abuse can be removed, then they'll try it again.
When will it be?
I don't know. I do know that they said that the objects would be continuing to be sighted. Sightings would increase. People would observe them in action, and that this was going on. It was going to keep going on. They have gone the route of selecting different people in the populace and revealing themselves to them, I guess, and trying to establish awareness of their presence by doing that.
How did they contact you?
Jun-Ichi asked Bill, why was he contacted?
It seems to be that they start out, you know, just normal sightings. And if the person indicates a willingness of some sort, then they'll return. They said they have means to notify those they wish to notify. They told me that the field where I was released someone else had been released in that field. I've been searching for who that person could be. Well, I don't know.
The investigation would wind down, even though Bill continued to search for clues into his past.
After I recall what happened the first time in March, I was told by the occupants that they consist of a network of these objects that are operating around the world presently in the continental Western Hemisphere, is the way they worded it. And they're from a cluster of stars 32 light years away, area in what we call reticuli, galaxy Zeta Reticulum, and that they were stellar astronomers. Or that was their whole civilization. That's what they were geared to: stellar astronomy and life and study of life all across galaxies, and that they're a network sent here to initiate what they call direct observances. And they conduct inter-atmospheric flight and direct observance of people. And what they do is they examine, they see the geographical spectrum. They examine the experiments that they conduct in what he called reverse osmosis and hydrodynamics. They conduct a lot of experiments over water. They conduct experiments in aeronomy and geodesy. See, these were things that came out after I went through. Dr. Harder helped me a great deal by breaking that block. It was like I couldn't remember. No matter what I tried, I couldn't remember. So when I did remember, it was like just like a water pipe that's busted in the water, just would keep turning over and turn over.